Oran stood at the viewing window of his flagship and watched the stars. Behind him, 400 warships followed in perfect formation. The fleet of the Dominion of Eternal Stars had never known defeat. In 3,000 years of conquest, they had taken over 200 worlds. Every species they met had fallen. Some fought for days. Some fought for weeks. None had ever lasted longer than a single rotation cycle. He was old now, his scales gray at the edges, but his mind was sharp. He had commanded fleets for 60 years. He had watched entire civilizations surrender at the sight of his ships. He had seen proud warriors throw down their weapons and beg for mercy. This was the natural order of things. The strong conquered. The weak submitted. This was how the universe worked. The planet they approached was called Earth by its people, a small blue world circling an ordinary yellow star. The intelligence reports sat on his desk, and he had read them many times. The species that lived there called themselves humans. They were young, barely 1,000 years into their technological development. They had only recently learned to travel between planets. Most of them still lived on there. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships were slow. Their defenses were weak. Victory projection, 72 hours. Oran allowed himself a small moment of disappointment. He had hoped for something more challenging in his final campaign before retirement. But the Dominion Council had chosen this target, and he would do his duty. The humans had resources the Dominion needed. Their world sat at a useful position for further expansion. They would be conquered, absorbed, and forgotten like all the others. His second-in-command, a younger officer named, entered the command chamber. She carried a data tablet and wore an expression of mild confusion. "Fleet Admiral," she said, "we have transmitted the standard surrender ultimatum to the human government." And their response? "That is why I am here, sir. They have not responded." Oran turned from the window. "No response at all." "Not exactly, sir. They acknowledged receipt of our message. Then they went silent for 6 hours. We detected massive communication activity across their world during this time. Then, 30 minutes ago, they sent a single transmission on all frequencies." She handed him the tablet. He looked at the translated message, 4 words. "Come and take it." Oran stared at the message for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. "Bravado," he said. "The desperate courage of the doomed. I have seen this before. They will fight for a few hours, realize they cannot win, and surrender. Order the fleet to advance." The ships moved forward. Earth grew larger in the viewing window. It was a beautiful world, Oran admitted. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. A shame it would soon belong to the Dominion. But such was the nature of conquest. As they approached, his communication officers began monitoring human transmissions. Standard procedure. Know your enemy, even a weak one. The reports came in every hour, and at first, Oran ignored them, but kept returning with updates, and her confusion had grown into something else. Something that looked almost like concern. "Sir, the human communications are unusual." "Unusual how?" "They are not panicking. Our psychological warfare division expected mass hysteria, civil breakdown, perhaps even infighting as factions blamed each other. This is the normal pattern for species facing conquest. And instead they are organizing, rapidly, efficiently. Their governments, which our intelligence indicated were often hostile to each other, are coordinating. Their military forces are mobilizing in ways that suggest they have planned for this exact situation. And sir..." She paused. Oran waited. "They sound eager." He dismissed this with a wave of his clawed hand. "Misinterpretation. Your translators are faulty. No species is eager to face the Dominion." But something small and cold had settled in his chest. He did not have a name for this feeling. He had never felt it before. The fleet entered orbit around Earth. Oran studied the planet's defenses and found them laughable. A few orbital stations, some communication satellites, cargo ships moving between Earth and its moon, No weapons platforms, no defense grid. The humans had not even tried to build a proper military presence in space. "They truly are primitive," said. "Perhaps they did not believe we were real until we arrived." Perhaps, Oran agreed, but that cold feeling remained. He ordered a scan of the largest human military installation in orbit. It was a space station near their moon, housing perhaps 1,000 soldiers. A small target, but destroying it would demonstrate Dominion power and encourage surrender. "All weapons target the station," he commanded. "Fire on my mark." The weapons fired, the station exploded. And then 14 Dominion ships exploded with it. Oran gripped the edge of his command console. Alarms screamed throughout the flagship. Damage reports flooded in. 14 ships, gone, in an instant. "What happened?" he demanded. Worked frantically at her console. Her scales had gone pale. "The station, sir, it was. It was not a military installation. Or rather, it was not only a military installation. The humans had filled it with explosives, massive amounts. When our weapons hit it, the humans inside manually triggered a secondary detonation. The blast radius was far larger than our calculations predicted. The humans inside triggered it. They killed themselves." "Yes, sir. They destroyed themselves to destroy our ships." Oran stood very still. He searched his memory for any record of such a tactic. He found nothing. No species in the history of Dominion conquest had ever deliberately chosen death to inflict damage on the enemy. Why would they? Dead soldiers could not fight. Dead soldiers could not protect their families. Dead soldiers could not enjoy victory. "The cargo ships," someone shouted. "The cargo ships are changing course." He turned to the tactical display. The harmless civilian vessels they had ignored were now accelerating toward Dominion warships, and they were broadcasting targeting signals. "They are armed," said. Her voice was hollow. "The cargo ships are armed. They hid their weapons inside civilian vessels." "The orbital stations," another officer called out. "Fighter craft launching from all of them. They are not civilian stations. They are carriers." Oran watched his tactical display fill with red warning signals. The humans had hidden everything. Their weapons, their soldiers, their true capabilities. They had shown the Dominion exactly what the Dominion expected to see, a primitive, helpless species, and the Dominion had believed it. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Dominion won. They were still stronger, still more advanced, still more numerous. But when the firing stopped, 40 ships were gone, more than the Dominion had lost in the last century of warfare, against a species they had expected to defeat in 3 days. Oran sat alone in his command chamber and read the intelligence files on humanity, not the military assessments, the history. He read about something called Thermopylae, where 300 warriors had fought to the death against an army of thousands. He read about Stalingrad, where humans had killed each other by the millions rather than surrender a single city. He read about soldiers who had thrown their own bodies onto explosive devices to save others. He read about humans who had cut off their own limbs to escape traps. He read about humans who had survived conditions that should have killed them through nothing but stubborn refusal to die. And that cold feeling in his chest grew stronger. He finally gave it a name: unease. The ground invasion would begin tomorrow. His generals assured him that the worst was over. Space was the difficult part. On the ground, Dominion forces would sweep across the planet in weeks. Oran looked at the blue world hanging in the darkness of space. He thought about those soldiers who had blown themselves up just to hurt his fleet. He thought about that forward message. "Come and take it." For the first time in his long career, Oran wondered if he had made a mistake. The drop ships fell through Earth's atmosphere like metal rain. Oran watched from orbit as 10,000 vessels carried his soldiers to the surface. The humans had lost control of their skis. Dominion fighters ruled the air above their cities. This was the beginning of the end, his generals promised. Ground warfare was where the Dominion truly excelled. He wanted to believe them. The first landing zones were in a region the humans called Europe. Ancient cities, dense populations, important infrastructure. Take this area, and the humans would understand they were beaten. They would see Dominion soldiers marching through their streets and realize that resistance was pointless. The reports came back within the first hour. Zone 7 is under heavy fire, a communications officer announced. Human forces are dug in throughout the city. They are not retreating. Zone 12 requesting reinforcements. Enemy combatants in civilian clothing. We cannot tell soldiers from non-combatants. Zone 3 has gone silent. No response from any units. Oran leaned forward in his command chair. What do you mean, gone silent? All communication lost, sir. 40,000 soldiers. No signals at all. He ordered a reconnaissance flight over Zone 3. The images that came back showed a city in ruins. Buildings had been collapsed deliberately, crushing Dominion forces beneath them. The roads had been destroyed. Every bridge was gone. And among the rubble, human fighters moved like ghosts, striking from shadows and vanishing before retaliation could come. The humans had destroyed their own city to create a killing ground. In the following days, Oran learned words that his language did not have. His translators struggled to find equivalents, but the concepts themselves were alien to his species. Insurgency. This meant that even after an area was conquered, the fighting did not stop. Humans who had surrendered would pick up weapons again. Humans who had hidden would emerge to attack. The war had no front lines. The war was everywhere. Guerrilla warfare. This meant that the weak did not fight the strong directly. They hid. They waited. They struck at supplies, at communication lines, at isolated units. They made the cost of occupation higher than the cost of retreat. Scorched earth. This meant that humans would burn their own crops, poison their own water, destroy their own factories rather than let the enemy use them. They would hurt themselves to hurt their conquerors. And there was another phrase that Oran heard again and again in intercepted human communications: acceptable losses. The humans had calculated how many of their own people they were willing to sacrifice to achieve their goals. They had put a number on it. They had made death into mathematics. His species did not think this way. The Dominion valued every soldier. A dead soldier was a failure. A dead soldier meant the conquest had been imperfect. But humans threw away lives like ammunition. They spent their own blood like currency. 2 weeks into the ground campaign, Oran's forces held every major city on the planet. The human governments had fled underground. Their military command structure had been shattered. By every measure the Dominion used, the war was won. But the killing did not stop. At night, Dominion soldiers could not sleep. Humans attacked in the darkness, using the shadows of their own world against the invaders. They knew every building, every tunnel, every hidden path. They set traps that waited for days before triggering. They used weapons made from household items, from farm equipment, from their own broken technology. Oran read a report about a human grandmother who had killed 3 Dominion soldiers with a kitchen knife before they finally stopped her. He read about children who carried explosives in their school bags. He read about a human hospital that had been converted into a fortress, where doctors fought alongside soldiers and treated wounded humans in between firefights. The humans did not separate their warriors from their civilians. Every human was a potential enemy. Every building was a potential fortress. Every victory led to more fighting. He requested a meeting with a captured human officer. Perhaps understanding their thinking would help end this war. They brought the human to his ship in chains. She was small even for her species. Gray hair, lined face, calm eyes. She wore a torn uniform with symbols Oran did not recognize. Her name, they told him, was General. He sat across from her in an interrogation room. She looked at him without fear. This bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Your forces have been defeated, he told her. Your cities are occupied. Your leaders are in hiding. Why do your people continue to fight? General smiled. It was not a pleasant smile, because we have not lost. You have lost everything. We have lost battles, we have lost cities, we have lost people, but we have not lost. She leaned forward and her chains rattled. Do you know what war is to us, Fleet Admiral? It is not something we avoid. It is not something we fear. We have been fighting each other since before we could write. We have turned war into an art form. We have built our entire civilization on the bones of the wars we have fought against ourselves. This is madness. This is humanity, she sat back. You want to know why we keep fighting? Because we do not know how to stop. Because surrender is not in our nature. Because we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. You have heard these phrases before, yes, in your study of our history. He had read them and dismissed them as dramatic nonsense. Now, watching this old woman in chains speak calmly about her species' love of war, he was not so sure. There is something else, General said, something you should understand. What? You have done something no human leader has ever achieved. You have united us. Her smile grew wider. We fight each other constantly. Over territory, over resources, over ideas, over things so small your translators could not explain them. But you have given us something better, an enemy we can all hate together. Every human on this planet, regardless of nation or belief or history, now has a common purpose. You. Oran said nothing. We will never stop, General continued. Never. You can kill us by the millions. You can burn our cities. You can destroy everything we have built, and we will keep fighting. Will keep fighting. There will keep fighting. We are very, very good at holding grudges. The interrogation ended. Oran returned to his command chamber and stood at the viewing window. Below him, Earth continued to burn. His soldiers continued to die. The humans continued to resist. A report arrived from a conquered city on a continent called North America. The Dominion had taken the city 3 days ago at the cost of 100,000 soldiers. This morning, his forces had discovered a message painted on every wall, every street, every building. The same words, written in every human language. We can do this forever, can you? Oran stared at the report for a long time. He thought about his soldiers who were exhausted, traumatized, dying in small numbers every day. He thought about General's calm smile. He thought about a species that had been at war with itself since the beginning of its existence and had somehow survived. The unease in his chest had grown into something larger, something that kept him awake at night, something that made him flinch at shadows. He still did not have a name for it. But he was beginning to understand. 3 months into the occupation, Oran stopped sleeping. It was not by choice. His body demanded rest. His mind refused to give it. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of dead soldiers. He heard the reports from the surface. He remembered General's words. We can do this forever, can you? The Dominion held Earth. This was the official position. All major cities were under control. All human military bases had been destroyed or captured. The human governments had been scattered, their communication networks disrupted, their ability to coordinate resistance severely damaged. And yet the dying continued. Every day brought new reports. A supply convoy ambushed in a mountain pass. A garrison attacked by fighters who emerged from the sewers. A Dominion commander assassinated by a human who had worked as his servant for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. The humans called this patience. Oran called it insanity. His soldiers were breaking, not physically. The Dominion military was well supplied, well equipped, well trained. But something inside them was crumbling. They had nightmares about human eyes watching from the darkness. They flinched at every sound. Some of them had started refusing to leave their vehicles. Others had stopped eating. The Dominion psychologists had a term for this: combat stress. It happened in every war to every species, but this was different, this was worse, because the stress never ended. There was no safe zone on Earth. There was no moment of peace. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, always watching, always waiting. Oran received a report from a sector commander named. The commander had been one of his best officers, a veteran of 30 campaigns. His message was short. Fleet Admiral, I am requesting immediate evacuation of my forces from Sector 19. We cannot hold this position. We cannot pacify this population. Every time we think we have established control, the humans find a new way to kill us. Yesterday, they collapsed a building on a patrol, 40 soldiers dead. Today, they poisoned a water supply. 60 soldiers sick, 12 dead. Tomorrow, it will be something else. We are not fighting an army. We are fighting a planet that hates us. Please advise. Oran did not know what to advise. He had no experience with an enemy like this. None of his training had prepared him for a species that simply refused to accept defeat. He called a meeting of his senior officers. They gathered in the war room, and he saw the exhaustion in their faces. They had aged years and months. The campaign that should have taken days was now approaching its 4th month with no end in sight. We need to adjust our strategy, he told them. The current approach is not working. What strategy do you suggest, sir? Asked. She had dark circles under her eyes. I do not know. That is why I called this meeting. Silence fell over the room. Then one of the younger officers spoke. His name was, and he had been studying human history in an attempt to understand their tactics. Sir, I have been researching their wars. There is a pattern. Explain. The humans have fought each other in countless conflicts. Many times a stronger force has attempted to conquer a weaker one through occupation, and there is a consistent result. He paused. The occupation always fails. Always. Eventually, yes, the occupied population resists. The occupying force exhausts itself trying to maintain control. The cost becomes too high. The occupation ends. Looked down at his notes. The humans have a saying. They call it the graveyard of empires. It refers to regions of their world that have destroyed every foreign army that tried to control them. But sir, I am beginning to believe the entire planet is such a graveyard. Another officer slammed his fist on the table. Then we destroy them. If they will not submit, we annihilate them. We have the weapons. Oran shook his head. The Council wants this world's resources and population intact. A dead planet gives us nothing. Then what do we do? No one had an answer. That night, Oran walked through his flagship alone. He passed the medical bay, where wounded soldiers lay in rows of beds. He passed the memorial hall, where the names of the dead were recorded. The list had grown very long. He passed the observation deck, where young officers sat staring at the blue planet below, their eyes empty. He found himself at a communication terminal. Without knowing why, he began searching through intercepted human transmissions, not military communications, personal ones, messages between families, between friends, between lovers. He read a message from a human mother to her son who was fighting in the resistance. She told him she was proud of him. She told him to be careful. She told him that whatever happened, he should never surrender. He read a message from a human child to her father who had been killed in the invasion. She said she missed him. She said she would grow up strong. She said she would make sure his death meant something. He read a message between 2 human soldiers who had fallen in love during the war. They wrote about the future they hoped to have, the home they wanted to build, the children they wanted to raise. They knew they would probably die. They wrote about it calmly, as if discussing the weather. This was what Oran did not understand. The humans knew they were outmatched. They knew they were dying. They knew, logically, that resistance was futile. But they did not stop. They did not despair. They continued fighting with a determination that bordered on madness. And they did it together. The mother, the child, the soldiers, the grandmother with the knife, the doctors in the hospital, the civilians who became fighters. They were all connected by something Oran could not name. He thought about his own people. The Dominion conquered because they were stronger. They ruled because they had power. But what held them together? Fear of punishment, duty to the state, self-interest. What held the humans together was something else, something that made them willing to die for each other, something that made them dangerous. A report arrived on his terminal. He read it and felt the blood drain from his scales. 3 Dominion colony worlds on the far edge of their territory had gone silent, all communication cut, all military stations destroyed. The automated defense systems had been triggered but had failed to stop the attack. And the attacking forces had been human. He read the report again, certain he had misunderstood, but the evidence was clear. While the Dominion fleet had been focused on Earth, the humans had launched a counterattack. Ships had left Earth in the early weeks of the war. Ramshackle vessels, barely functional, held together with determination and desperate engineering. They had traveled for months through empty space, their crews surviving on minimal supplies. And they had reached Dominion territory. They had not come to conquer, they had come to send a message. The colony worlds were not occupied, they were damaged, burned. The human ships had destroyed military installations, freed slave populations, wrecked infrastructure, and then they had moved on. The message they left behind was simple. 4 words, transmitted to every surviving Dominion citizen on those worlds. Remember Earth. Oran sat in the darkness of the observation deck and finally understood what he was feeling. It was not unease. It was not stress. It was not fear of death. It was dread. The dread of facing an enemy that would not stop. That could not be reasoned with. That had decided, collectively, that winning this war was more important than survival. The humans were not defending their world. They were hunting the Dominion. And they were just getting started. The Dominion Council screamed at Oran through the communication screen. You were supposed to conquer a primitive species, the High Counselor shouted. You were supposed to bring us an easy victory. Instead, our own worlds are burning. Oran stood rigid before the screen. He had no defense. The facts spoke for themselves. 3 colony worlds damaged, 2 more under attack. Human ships appearing from nowhere, striking fast and vanishing into the void before the Dominion fleet could respond. How? The High Counselor demanded. How did they reach our territory? Our intelligence said they barely had interstellar capability. They lied, Oran said quietly. Or rather, they hid the truth. They showed us what we expected to see. A primitive species with primitive technology, and we believed it because we wanted to believe it. This is unacceptable. You will end this war immediately. I am trying, High Counselor, but the humans do not fight as we do. They do not think as we do. Every strategy we use they counter. Every weapon we deploy they find ways around. And now, he paused, now they are no longer defending, they are attacking. The council session ended with no resolution. Oran returned to his command chamber and studied the tactical maps. Human ships were appearing across Dominion space. Small vessels, poorly armed, crewed by humans who had volunteered to travel for months in terrible conditions with almost no chance of returning home. They were not trying to win a military victory. They were trying to spread fear. And it was working. Reports came in from Dominion worlds that had never seen human ships. Civilians were panicking. Military commanders were requesting reinforcements. Slave populations that had been controlled for centuries were growing restless, inspired by stories of the species that had dared to fight back. A message arrived from the human resistance on Earth. It was not encrypted. They wanted the Dominion to read it. Fleet Admiral Oran, you came to our world expecting easy prey. You found something else. Now you understand what humanity truly is. We are not defenders, we are hunters. We will follow you across the galaxy. We will strike your worlds, your ships, your people, not to conquer, to remind you. Every generation of your species will know what happens when you attack Earth. Every child of your civilization will learn the lesson. You cannot escape us. You cannot outlast us. You cannot kill enough of us to make us stop. The only way this ends is if you leave, so leave." Oran read the message 3 times. Then he began researching human hunting strategies. What he found chilled his blood. Humans were persistent predators. In their ancient past, before they had technology, they had hunted by following their prey, not by being faster, not by being stronger, by simply refusing to stop. They would chase an animal for hours, for days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. The prey would run and rest and run again. But the humans kept coming, always walking, always following. The prey never escaped. This was what they were doing to the Dominion. The Dominion fleet was stronger. The Dominion military was better equipped. In any direct confrontation, the humans would lose. But the humans were not seeking direct confrontation. They were striking and retreating, appearing and vanishing, keeping the entire Dominion on edge. They were wearing down an empire through pure persistence. A new report arrived. A human attack force had been detected approaching the Dominion. Oran felt his heart stop. Though the seat of the Council, the center of Dominion power, if the humans reached it, even if they caused only minor damage, the psychological impact would be devastating. He gave the order immediately. The fleet would withdraw from Earth. They would return to defend Dominion territory. The conquest was over. His officers stared at him in disbelief. "We are retreating," asked. "We are repositioning. There is no honor in holding a world while our own worlds burn." "But the Council ordered us to conquer Earth." "The Council can fight the humans themselves if they wish." Oran's voice was harsh. "I have lost 100,000 soldiers on that planet. I have lost 50 ships in orbit. I have lost 3 colony worlds because we focused on the wrong enemy. No more. We leave." The fleet began its withdrawal, and as Oran had feared, the humans pursued. Human ships followed the Dominion fleet through space, not attacking, not engaging, just following, watching, waiting. Sometimes they would broadcast messages, short phrases that burrowed into the minds of Dominion soldiers. "We see you. We're coming. You started this, we'll finish it." Oran's soldiers began breaking down in larger numbers. Some refused to stand watch. Others became violent toward each other. A few took their own lives. They could not handle the constant presence of an enemy that never attacked but never went away. This is how they hunted, Oran realized. This is how they drove animals to exhaustion in their ancient past. They just kept following, and the prey ran and ran until it could not run anymore. He ordered his ships to increase speed. The human vessels fell behind but did not stop. They would catch up eventually. They always caught up. 2 weeks into the retreat, Oran received a personal message. It was from General, who had apparently been freed from captivity during the human resistance's final push. She was now commanding a pursuit vessel. "Fleet Admiral," her message said, "I told you we would never stop. You did not believe me. Now you understand. You can return to you can build defenses. You can prepare for our arrival. It will not matter. We have all the time in the universe, and we are very patient." He did not respond. What could he say? The Dominion fleet reached the 3 weeks later. The human attack force had been intercepted and destroyed before it could reach the planet. The Council declared victory. Celebrations were held. Oran was summoned to receive medals and honors for defending the Dominion. He stood in the great hall of the Council and let them pin symbols of glory to his uniform. He said the words they wanted him to say. He accepted their praise and their gratitude. But inside he knew the truth. The humans had achieved their goal. They had reached across the stars and touched the Dominion. They had proven that no Dominion citizen was safe. They had planted fear in the hearts of a civilization that had never known fear. And somewhere in the darkness of space, more human ships were coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, because humans never forgot, humans never forgave, humans never stopped. Oran looked at the council members celebrating around him. They thought they had won. They thought the threat was over. He knew better. The humans were still out there in their damaged ships with their limited supplies and their unlimited determination. They were planning. They were preparing. They were waiting. The war was not over. It had only just begun. 6 months after the retreat from Earth, Oran stood before the Dominion Council for the last time. He was not there to receive honors. He was there to deliver a warning. "We must sue for peace," he said. The council erupted in outrage. Councilors shouted over each other. Some called him a coward. Others called him a traitor. The High Counselor slammed his fist against the table and demanded silence. "Peace," the High Counselor said. "With a species we nearly conquered. They have no fleet, they have no army, they have nothing." "They have everything," Oran replied. "They have something we do not understand and cannot defeat. Let me show you." He activated the display screens around the chamber. Images appeared, videos, documents. The council grew quiet as they watched. A human soldier charging a fortified position, laughing as weapons fired at him. A human prisoner who had revealed nothing despite days of interrogation, despite pain that would have broken any Dominion citizen. A human child being taught to fire a weapon, her face serious, her hands steady. A city in ruins, but with a flag still flying above the rubble. Messages from human resistance fighters, sent in the moments before their deaths, telling their families they loved them and to keep fighting. "This is humanity," Oran said. "This is what we are fighting, not an army, not a nation, a species that has made war the core of its existence. They have been killing each other since before they could speak. They have refined the art of violence for 100,000 years. Every generation of humans has known war. Every human alive has ancestors who survived by being better at killing than their enemies." He changed the display. Now it showed graphs, statistics, projections. In 8 months of war, we lost more soldiers than in the previous century combined. We lost 3 colony worlds. We lost control of 14 slave populations who were inspired by human resistance. And we achieved nothing. Earth is still free. The humans are still fighting, and they are improving. He showed them images of human ships captured in combat. When the war began, their vessels were primitive. Look at them now. They are learning from us, adapting, getting better. In another year, their ships will be equal to ours. In 5 years, they may be superior. The High Counselor spoke slowly. "Then we destroy them now while we still can." How we tried, we occupied their world. We controlled their cities. We had every advantage, and they did not break. If we launch another invasion, the same thing will happen. And this time they will be ready. This time they will have better weapons. This time they will strike at our worlds before we even reach theirs. He turned off the displays and faced the council directly. "I have studied their history. I have spoken to their officers. I have tried to understand how they think, and I have come to a conclusion." "What conclusion?" "Humans have a word that does not exist in our language. They call it spite. It means hurting yourself to hurt an enemy, choosing pain to inflict pain, sacrificing everything just to prove a point." He paused. "This is who they are. They will burn their own cities to deny us resources. They will crash their ships into ours even when they could escape. They will fight to the last human alive, and that last human will spend their final breath cursing our names." He walked toward the council table. "You think we can outlast them? You think we can wear them down? You are wrong. They have been outlasting enemies for 100,000 years. They survived ice ages. They survived plagues. They survived weapons that could destroy cities. Every crisis made them stronger. Every enemy made them more determined. They are not a species. They are a force of nature, like gravity, like entropy. You cannot defeat entropy. You can only get out of its way." The council chamber was silent. "What do you suggest?" the High Counselor finally asked. "We negotiate. We end this war. We leave them alone. And we tell every species we encounter the same thing. Earth is not worth the cost. The debate lasted 3 days. In the end, the council agreed, not because they believed Iran, because they had no other choice. The war had already cost them too much. The slave populations were growing restless. Other conquered species were watching. If the Dominion could not defeat humans, perhaps the Dominion could not defeat anyone. Peace talks were arranged. A neutral location was chosen. Iran led the Dominion delegation himself. The humans sent 3 representatives. 2 were military officers. The third was an old woman with gray hair and scars on her hands. She looked tired but unbroken. She introduced herself as ambassador, the same who had commanded the pursuit fleet, the same he had interrogated on his ship. "Fleet Admiral," she said, "we meet again." "Ambassador, you have risen in rank." "War provides opportunities." She sat down across from him. "What are your terms?" Iran had prepared a long list: territorial concessions, resource agreements, military limitations. He began to recite them. Listened without expression. When he finished, she shook her head. "No," she said simply. "No. We don't want your worlds. We don't want your resources. We don't want military advantages." She leaned forward. "We want one thing, Fleet Admiral. We want you to remember." "Remember what?" "Remember what happened when you attacked Earth. Remember the cost. Remember the soldiers you lost, the ships you sacrificed, the years of war that gained you nothing." Her voice was hard as steel. "And we want you to tell everyone, every species you meet, every civilization you contact. Tell them about humanity. Tell them what happened when you tried to conquer us. Tell them that Earth is not worth the price." Iran stared at her. "That is all? You want us to spread stories about you?" "Stories are how species survive, Fleet Admiral. Long after your empire crumbles, long after our cities turn to dust, the stories will remain. And when some future civilization discovers Earth and thinks about invasion, they will remember. They will know. And they will turn away." The treaty was signed that day. The Dominion all claims to Earth and its colonies. Both sides agreed to peace. Both sides agreed to remember. 10 years later, Iran sat in his home on the Dominion. He was old now, his scales faded to gray, his body weak. But his mind remained sharp, and he was writing his memoirs. A young officer came to visit. She was eager and bright, newly commissioned, full of questions about his famous career. She asked about his victories, his strategies, his proudest moments. Then she asked about the humans. "What was it like," she said, "to fight them?" Iran set down his writing tool. He was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know what dread is?" he finally asked. "Fear of danger." "No, fear is simple, fear is healthy, fear keeps you alive." He looked at her with ancient eyes. "Dread is different. Dread is knowing that you face something that will not stop, not because it cannot feel pain, not because it does not understand death, but because it has decided that winning matters more than pain, more than survival, more than anything." He turned to look out the window at the stars. "The humans taught me dread. They taught me that there are worse things than predators in this universe. There are species that have made war into the very core of their being, species that have learned to love it, species that will burn everything they have just to deny you victory." The young officer was silent. "I have fought many enemies," Iran continued. "I have conquered many worlds, but I have never faced anything like humanity, and I pray to every god I know that I never will again." He picked up his writing tool and turned back to his memoirs. "May your stars never cross theirs," he said. "May you never know the dread of facing an enemy that simply will not stop." The young officer left. Iran wrote until the sun set over the Dominion, and in the darkness he thought about a small blue planet circling an ordinary yellow star. He thought about the soldiers who had blown themselves up to hurt his fleet. He thought about the grandmother with the kitchen knife. He thought about General's calm smile. He thought about 4 words broadcast across the stars: "Come and take it." and for the 10,000th time he felt dread.